In today's special Christmas episode of the Real Producers Podcast, we're giving you a special gift. We're highlighting some of our favorite guest moments and advice for succeeding in challenging real estate markets. The NAR settlement was the talk of 2024, and agents across the country wanted to know how to survive it and turn this obstacle into a massive opportunity. Our top producers had plenty of great advice and strategies for adapting and even gaining market share. So let's dive in.
That's a pretty aggressive change from the 70s till now when you add in all the technology that was created in that time. What has never been replaced is that physical touch of a realtor, of a person guiding someone through the process. And as we think about all the disruptors, and a lot of disruptors even in the last 5 years that have come that are kind of attacking the real estate industry, or at least the life of the realtor, one thing that will never change is someone's ability to walk them through the process and that human connection. And so if you go all the way back to delivering books, and like what the reason that worked for you was because people felt taken care of, and that like they actually had someone who knew more about real estate than they did walking them through the process. I imagine that's why you were rising in the ranks as quickly as you were.
It's that human touch, Remington, and that can never be replaced. Too many times in today's market, I'll see realtors that hardly ever talk to their clients. They'll email them, they'll text them. And yes, a lot of people like to work through text, but it does pay every now and then to pick up that phone and actually be able to talk to someone when you're not meeting with them, to be able to do that. And I have found that has really stood the test of time. There's just no substitute for people feeling like you're putting them first. And yes, you can do some of that through emails, you can do some of that through text messages, but when you don't have the time, or they don't, to actually physically meet with them, there's no substitute in my book then for talking to them on the phone, because through your tone of voice and the way you talk to them, they can tell that you're really empathizing with them, that you're putting their interests first, something you can do much better than through an impersonal text or email. And that's something that I always try to follow up with, no matter how often I text or email people. I always try to follow up with that personal contact on a regular basis also.
So jumping ahead a little bit, Dick, what's crazy to me is when we first put you on the cover in June of 2015, the first issue ever, I believe you were in the 50s in terms of production, 50 million, 56 million, something like that. And within 5 years, you basically doubled it to be the first realtor in Indiana history to do 100 million. So at the time, you had still been top 5, number 1 many times in the city of Indianapolis. How do you take such a successful career and then double it and even go beyond to set those records? What does that look like?
Well, maybe I operate a little differently than a lot of people. In my case, I always try to keep my priorities in order. I see too many realtors that are just work, and that's number one with them. In my case, and part of why I'm still in the business after all these years, I try to have a proper balance in what I do. And it starts with priorities, your faith, your family, and then your vocation. But within that time you spend on your vocation, it's amazing how if you've got the right attitude and have a proper balance in your life, you can be more enthusiastic, more dedicated for the time that you spend with people. And part of the trick, too, is not letting people think that you're not 24/7. One of the things that I've done over time, let's say I wake up in the middle of the night and I'll check emails. And anything that came in late, maybe I need to respond to, instead of waiting until the next morning, I'll go ahead and respond. And it's amazing how that next day they'll call and say, boy, you really are a 24/7 realtor, aren't you? Well, not really, but I always try to give that perception that I am. And I'm never too far from being able to get back to somebody, because even when I'm on vacation, I monitor my emails, text messages, all those things. And it does pay to be able to do that. And I've learned to be able to compartmentalize. But following up on how am I able to go from 50 to The year before, right around 150 million has been our top year. Well, it starts by hiring good people, because back when I started, and I was doing things by myself, and I did have to have a secretary assistant behind the scenes to handle paperwork and all that during the daytime. But I have found by hiring good people and learning how to delegate, you're able to basically have yourself in more than one place at any given time. Anybody in a successful business, when they have one store that's operating well, they open another one, and then another one, they learn how to branch themselves out by getting lots of good help, and it really does pay off. So by hiring a lot of good people, and then with the current techniques we have, where you're not having to chase a lot of things down because of your computers and emails, et cetera, that helps save a lot of driving time in a lot of cases. So in those 50 hours a week, and that's what I try to do, is work 50 hours a week. Within those 50 hours, I try to maximize the time I spend on business and giving team members the things that they need to know and work with also.
What's going on right now with mortgages and the industry just coming to a halt right after a booming year. I mean, it's been a crazy 3-year stretch, right? You have the 2020, you have the pandemic, and then you come out of it, real estate's actually popping, and then comes to a screeching halt. This would be another version of '08 for some people. So someone's listening to this who's actually in the thick of the weeds, and you're now having some of your biggest years ever in real estate. And that's after having a mountaintop and falling off that mountaintop and going into the valley. And that's where some people are. So, and can you talk to me about what you're seeing in this current state with, the way mortgages are going, with the way real estate is going, and how you're weathering that storm?
Yeah, it's nothing, for one thing, this is not '08, guys. This is just a correction in the market. There's not a dip in an enormous equity loss, right? Funding is still available. It just, the cost of capital is a heck of a lot higher than where it was a year ago, or where it was, a year and a half ago. And overall, this is a contact sport, right? Even in, 09, 010, when I had some of my best years, in real estate, 2016, I was, top individual agent in the world, real estate agent in the world, top 50 with Keller Williams Realty. So this is nothing new, right? It's a shock to the market. It's a shock to those who haven't been, who haven't seen, the cycles that I've had over, almost 30 years of being in real estate. This is just more of a contact sport. And, before you probably only have to make half of a contact. Now you may have to make 25 to 30. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you just gotta this is all contact sport. And as long as you, block your time to make those necessary calls, hands down, you're gonna do great.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Before it was just easier. It's not that it's impossible now. If you have a contact sport, one contact, and boom, you make a sale. Now, right. If you know that you just have to do 20 or 30 more times, then you just have to do 20 or 30 more times to see that same success.
Right.
Pretty interesting. The last interview we had, last episode with Dick Richpoint, he said that he doesn't believe there's ever a bad time to be in real estate for a good realtor. And I'm hearing you say the same thing. This is never a bad time to be in this industry if you're good at your job and you hustle.
There's several sayings in real estate, and most of us will appreciate it, but we wake up every morning unemployed. We're 100% commission people. You don't get up, you don't work, you don't eat. And that's still the case today, even though, we've grown our business in a way where it's a lot more predictable. You still have to get up every single day and go to work. And so I do remember it, because there are times where you struggle, you have to pivot. Right now, in the last 6 to 8 months, a lot of people have had to reinvent themselves or kind of figure out how to redo what they've been doing, because what's, has been working really easily isn't so much anymore. So, yeah,
sure.
I mean, every single day, I think everyone would echo that same sentiment. We're still in a net deficit of housing. There's just not enough housing for the people that are needing it. And with interest rates going up where the short-term commercial rates are involved with the construction of housing primarily, right? So what you're going to see, the higher that short-term rates go up, the less new subdivisions are being built, the less product is going to be put on the ground. That's not affecting an owner occupant as much with a mortgage, but construction is going to slow as a result of it costing a lot more to borrow the money to build things. So we're going to start to see the housing deficit get worse, just like I think it did over COVID when everyone shut down. So that's why housing pricing is not particularly going down in many areas, given that rates should be forcing it down. It's because supply is being down. But back to your other point, with office in particular, where people are saying, we're not all going back to work. We're going to work remotely. What I'm seeing a lot of opportunities in is to take some of that office and convert it. We're looking at doing a conversion of a warehouse building in a downtown area and converting it into loft apartments. And so I think a lot of times office may end up being never like it used to be because of this paradigm of being able to work remotely. And so you'll see less office construction probably, but in the interim, some of these buildings that may not be utilized anymore might be going into foreclosure or subsidized in one way. You can maybe convert those into residential product, and that's a way to retool that property into something that's valuable. And there's plenty of demand for that.
People are blaming interest rates. People are blaming lack of inventory. People are blaming politics. People are blaming everything except for themselves, basically. So since the beginning of time, people have needed a place to live. Whether somebody was building a clay hut or a teepee or an A-frame or a plantation house, or I can go through the whole evolution of real estate because it's one of the things I love in life and I'm a nerd, right? But the point is, no matter what was going on with the economy or the environment, people were making and building places to live. Everybody's always looking for a place to live. So why talk about the negative things in the market when you could talk about, well, yeah, your mortgage is 7%, but rent is 100% interest. Things like that. Like, it's our job to switch the conversation. Oh, inventory's low. Well, as a realtor, you should be outdoor knocking. You should be sending mailers. You should be cold calling. You should be doing open houses. You should be networking. You should be. So the reason you don't have listings is you.
Man, it's like kids. I mean, it's like I have 3 kids, and if you ask one of them, why did you do that? Typically, at least at this stage in life, they're like, well, so-and-so. And the first thing they say as out of their mouth is what someone else did and why and we don't change. I mean, in the professional world, I mean, so parents, fathers and mothers of these kids are doing the same things when asked about why they're not getting the success they want or their frustrations in this business.
They blame everybody.
Point. Yeah.
But the reality is you have to move with the market. There's always a real estate market. Whether or not you're built to work in it is on you. Yeah, I chose to go the broker route and start signing agents and grow offices, but I still sell houses at a high level.
Sure.
But the requirement of consistency, dedication, and the things that I do every single day to have my success aren't things that people want to do, man. They don't want to get up at 4 a.m. They don't want to do all their follow-up and their workout and their personal time before 7 a.m. because at 7:30, I'm on everybody else's clock, right? I have 180 agents. I got 5 admin staff. I got a title company that has 15 people involved. It's just like, if people knew the things that you're actually doing to have all this success, they call it, that's where you would draw the line of, that's where the excuses start. You got people that do things and people that talk about doing things. Yeah. I'm on the side of getting those things done.
But the bulk of realtors, in my experience, they just figure it out, and they do it to the best interest of their buyers and sellers. And that's absolutely what it takes to survive in real estate for the long haul, is to have somebody else's best interest in mind. And I watch agents do this every day. I've watched them go power wash a driveway because it needed to get done, and their seller was elderly, and like, you know what, I'll do it. They didn't get paid for that, but they did it because it was the right thing to do. And I wish we told that story more, because if the public opinion of us was in those angles, and they understood this, it would be different for us in these class action lawsuits. And so I do think that's one of the things we can be doing is a better job of telling our own story. And I'll say this, like the attack on buyer agents, the timeliness of it is just interesting to me because, of course, lawsuits percolate for years. But in the last 3 years, this COVID market has been crazy. And I think every agent who has been in the business longer than 4 years understands how crazy it's been. The people who came in during COVID, they think that's normal. So they're having a hard time right now adjusting to something that's a little less frantic. But during that time frame, 40, 50, 60 offers on a listing. Oh my gosh, a buyer didn't have a buyer agent, had no shot of getting a house at all, because a buyer had to have an agent to help them thread the needle on the process. So we've had this beautiful moment in the last 3 years of buyers absolutely yelling from the mountaintops how much they appreciate us and needed us, especially the buyers who wrote 5, 10, 15 offers trying to win. And when they finally won, they're like, man, you got me there. We need to encourage them to tell that story more.
Oh, yeah.
In those same 3 years, you had a lot of sellers that were like, anybody can sell a house right now. It's super easy, until they put their FSBO sign in the yard and then got 4 phone calls and 4 offers out of nowhere. And then my phone would ring and they'd be like, I was going to for sale by owner my house. I'm like, oh, well, wonderful. Wish you the best. We have 4 offers. What do we do? Like, well, you can hire me and I can help you, but I'm not allowed to give advice unless I am your hired agent. Yeah. And they realized it wasn't as easy as they thought. And so there's a great opportunity there. Now that we are still under risk, and we know that if one of the lawsuits does come against us, more will crop up. Copycats always occur. So the way we prepare for that is, first of all, the court of public opinion. Second of all, it's understanding how we can continue to be compensated if the market looks different. And so what I've been preparing my agents for is, if compensation goes to 0, I still want you to represent buyers because they still need you. So how are we going to get compensated, and what kind of structures will we create to allow the buyers to have some choices? That's what every agent and broker need to be doing right now, is evaluating that. And in addition to thinking through the brokerage model and options on that, and how we're going to, we got to provide some alternatives to buyers, because the ones that are going to get the most hurt if we lose the ability to compensate buyer agents are the first time lower price point buyers, because those are the ones that
because they're not going to know what they're doing. And
your 1%ers, they're fine. They can hire some lawyers, and I love representing them, but they don't need me like my first timers do. And I want to make sure I've got that ability to serve. Now, that does mean that NAR, the National Association, is going to have to make sure we're talking to the GSEs, to Fannie and Freddie, to get that rule fixed. And I've actually spoken to several Congress people from North Carolina, because lucky for us, we're a purple state. So our delegation is a bunch of Democrats and a bunch of Republicans. I'm talking to both sides of the aisle so that maybe they can create some bipartisan legislation that will fix that rule. Because that's easy to say yes to, and then they can all brag about it in their election, how bipartisan they are. That's great.
This is eye-opening. And I love what you said earlier about the professionalism of thinking about how this is affecting your image, but your fellow realtors' image and the industry image, and thinking about that in every decision and thing that you do. I think that's one of the big reasons why the magazine has been successful, is because it's brought real estate together. We have realtors at the top, the 1%ers, we are representing the 1% at the top, and they're learning stories about each other, they're getting closer, they're coming to the events, and that's strengthening their camaraderie to where it's not, the more you do text and email and things that distance yourself from the other person, the easier it is for things to fall through and create messed up relationships and images to the consumer. So hopefully, all the things, hopefully this has been encouraging to anyone listening to the podcast, thinking of how can they be more professional and bring more professionalism to this industry. The conversation around the market being down and what's going to happen but it's hard for me not to ask someone who's seen so much success in both types of markets, an 08 recession type market, a COVID market, and then also crazy good markets. You're still seeing the same success. What would you say is the 1 or 2 key things that if I'm either looking to get into real estate or I'm looking to survive my real estate business right now that you're doing that maybe they're not?
Let me just give you the most practical advice I possibly can. Your willingness to adapt will be the difference between you being successful in this market and going into a different industry. Because if you're not willing to adapt, what you did in the market of yesteryear is not what's going to work in the market of today. Great markets create bad habits. They create bad agents. So many of us, myself included, I was eating from the buffet. You know what I look like when I went out to the swimming pool? I didn't look the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
I've been eating at the buffet in real estate. We got to put that down. We got to get disciplined. We need a meal plan. We need to audit what we're putting in our mouth. I mean, truly, this market requires somebody willing to adapt and somebody that's willing to build relationships. Start with your SOI, your sphere of influence, and then get uncomfortable. Who else is outside of that SOI that you would love to be in it? Figure out how to add value into their lives and add value into their understanding of the market. You will succeed. And that's what I'm preaching to our agents today.
As realtors, we have to be the ones that control the narratives. And what I found is that we know that the media doesn't always tell the truth or they spin the truth. And so the general public is already prepared for that, but it's just up to us as professionals to really tell the true story. And we have to do that on a small scale through our clients, through our communities, through our social media, and just really tell what the true story of what's happening. So just since that's been, announced, I went on several listing appointments, and that is the very first question they ask me is like, how does this affect me? Does this mean I can't pay a buyer's commission? Like, do I have to? You never had to begin with. And just how that works. It's actually a really good opportunity for agents to really dive into conversations that maybe got glassed over by this crazy, insane market that low interest rates, provided. It's a great opportunity to dive into conversations about how it works, how people get paid. And it's just an opportunity we just didn't take in the past. I think there's an opportunity for realtors to get better in a lot more areas than just that, because that 2021, 2020 market just really didn't do us any favors. So you're attracted a whole new generation of realtors, like you said, that came in that were looking for a side hustle, fresh out of college, and we had this conversation of, my sister's brother's cousin just got a license. I want to throw him a bone. All you guys do is unlock doors. The opportunity in this is to show how that is just not the case. I think one of the things that realtors do a very, very bad job at is explaining exactly what we do. Explaining that, when your septic fails or your appraisal comes in low or your buyer backs out at the last minute and you just paid $10,000 to move your family across, the city. How do you navigate that process? And we've done a really bad job of explaining that, exactly what our value is. So the opportunity is really for us to articulate our value to our clients when we meet them. I think we got away from having these really in-depth consultations. Like when you go in to see your doctor, you sit down and have a consultation. You explain to them what's going on. What goals do you hope to reach? What problems are you having? What challenges do you need help with? And we got away from that when the interest rates were low and there were 20, 30, offers on homes at a time. And you just needed to get there as fast as you could. So, Mary's sister's brother's cousin doesn't get there first. So I believe that's the biggest opportunity, is really to elevate the professionalism in our industry. And this is really an opportunity for those seasoned people that have experience to rise to the top.
Kelly, anything to add to that?
Yeah, we're excited. As your real producers agents, your real producers realtors are high producing professionals. Take it serious. And we're excited about some of the positive, great things that I can already see coming out of this. One of them being realtor safety, because without a buyer broker agreement, which wasn't required in many states, a lot of people would take that random online lead and meet a random online stranger at an empty house on a moment's notice in hopes of getting a deal. And that is going to slow down a ton. So
why? How's that going to slow down? What's the new route by which they can get that online lead?
Yes, great question, because the second great thing is the transparency of how all of us are paid. Where the buyer's dollar goes when they buy a home and they get the mortgage and put it together with their down payment, or they're putting up all the cash, where are all the dollars going? And that transparency opens up too, because of the requirement of a buyer broker listing agreement, I'm calling them now, because it's like a listing agreement. When you go to list a house, you make that agreement with a brokerage that you're going to sell your house with this brokerage. And now a buyer is going to be committed in the same way to a brokerage, that they're going to sign on with someone to be their partner and represent them in this. So it slows down the process. Hopefully, we're hoping that it will that agents will take this seriously, to have a buyer consultation, sit down, go through all things and how their money is spent, just like we would with a listing. That transparency in all of the areas, it's helping us open up the conversation with sellers as well. It's just transparency. It's not just, oh, here's my rate. Here's my rate for commission. Let's, negotiate it. We come up with it, but we're going to go a little deeper in where, even if this is my rate, how is that going to be spent? Is part of it going to be offered as a concession towards a buyer fee? Is part of it going to be for closing cost, interest rate buy downs? Like, we're going to be a little more open to those conversations and negotiations as buyers come in and ask for those concessions of where is this money actually going, rather than the seller just offering money out there without the thought. So much higher level of professionalism, and I love the safety element of it. I'm hoping that agents take it seriously enough to not just go meet a random stranger at a random house.